Oh, the holiday season is in full gear, which means the Denver Nuggets have like 10 gajillion games in the next like 10 days.
Yes, sir.
And Nilo Piro. I'm Jake Shapiro. This is the Mile High Hoops podcast. We're going to make sure you're up to date on everything NBA and Denver Nuggets. So when you go to your Christmas party and you've got your uncle saying he knows all this about the NBA, you're more informed than him. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. Make sure you're ready for the biggest day of the NBA regular season. But first, I wanted to chat with Danilo about what we saw from the Denver Nuggets over the last couple days, which was, since we talked to you last, a win against the Orlando Magic, which wasn't that surprising given the fact that the Orlando Magic have had some serious injuries. The Denver Nuggets overturned a big lead in that game. I thought they looked really solid. And then they play the Houston Rockets, looking for the season matchup win against the Rockets, round 3, just a couple days later. Referee talk, coach talk. Teams are relatively healthy to where they've been at least over the last month. And the Houston Rockets, the score was close at the end, but they smoked the Denver Nuggets. And I think that game finally revealed the fact that the Denver Nuggets are not getting by with bubblegum and shoestrings anymore. They need Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon. The luck has kind of run out.
Yeah, and you and I were talking. We were both at the game together, covering it for us at Denver Sports, and there's no such thing as like a scheduled win or loss in professional sports. But in the back of my mind, going back to Houston when the Nuggets beat them on Monday, Houston followed that up with a loss to the New Orleans Pelicans on Wednesday or Thursday of that week. In my head, I'm like, okay, Houston's going to come out and they're going to play like with their hair on fire, just given the fact they've dropped 2 games in a row, one being to the New Orleans Pelicans. And what was the big thing that you said? You got to get in Kevin Durant's chili if they want to try to disrupt the Houston Rockets and get another win against them this season. Would have been their 3rd in a row. The exact opposite happened. I think Kevin Durant kind of got in their chili. You saw the finger gun. Selly's going around out there. Kevin Durant was pumped up, and the Houston Rockets get themselves a dub in Denver.
Rockets lost last night to the Kings, too.
Interesting.
They've lost 3 of their last 4, and they're scuffling a little bit. Maybe not the team I thought of them as going into the week. Somehow they've gone down my totem pole a little bit, even though they beat the Denver Nuggets. But yeah, I really do think that there was a factor of injuries with Christian and Aaron, and the Nuggets kind of are just out of firepower. It's really hard to beat a good team. And I know I just said they're down my totem pole a little bit, but it's really hard to beat a good team. And they are a good team 3 times in a row, twice within the same week. And, I have to mention it because David Adelman proved it was a story with his ejection and his fine. That game was completely touted or tinted by the referees. David Adelman had a problem with the officials the entire way. And from my personal opinion, I believe that Ime Udoka's tirade and Alpi Sengun's going off about the refs after the game on Monday night, where the Denver Nuggets beat the Houston Rockets in a game that was very poorly officiated for both sides, but against the Denver Nuggets for 3 quarters and then against the Houston Rockets late, as proved by the NBA's last 2 minutes report, which had 3 calls going against the Rockets, and the Nuggets win in that game. Come into the next game, and the Denver Nuggets don't get a foul drawn on Houston until 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. First 5 fouls of the fourth quarter are all against the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic has to sit out basically the entire third quarter in foul trouble. I think the Nuggets lose this game either way. They didn't shoot the ball well enough. Again, they didn't have the firepower. But there's a reason David Adelman got tossed from that game, and it's because he had a lot of reason to be frustrated. And based off of what happened on Monday, it felt very reactionary by the NBA and their officials.
Yeah, I think a couple of different things, right? Like, they've done a good job of piecing it together down Christian Brown and down Aaron Gordon, which when you lose Peyton Watson as well, who's been a key role player for this team, then you're truly running on empty. I know they've got Jamal and they've got Jokic out there, but these guys can only do so much, right? And Cam Johnson, still a bit up and down throughout the tenure of his Nuggets career. Spencer Jones has been a nice plug-and-play guy at times, but at some point, the Nuggets were going to stumble against a quality opponent, and that's exactly what you saw happen against Houston on Saturday. I agree with you completely, Jake, with respect to the foul calls. I thought it was a little one-way-ish, but also I can't make an excuse for a Denver Nuggets team that's going to shoot 28% from 3 and 40% from the field. So take the refs out of it. I know that has a factor to it, and we saw yesterday with the Broncos, like referees are terrible in all sports. It's not mutually exclusive to the Nuggets or the NBA, but when you shoot 40% from the field and 28% from 3 against a good team with Reed Shepherd lighting it up and Kevin Durant and Sengun on in that game, you're not going to come out victorious a majority of the time.
So the Nuggets have played the Rockets 3 times now. Aaron Gordon's played 5 of those minutes. He got hurt very early on in that Houston game in Houston. The 2 lowest scoring games of Alpi Sengun, who's going to be an All-Stars season. 8 points against the Nuggets a couple days ago on Saturday. 14 points that game in Houston a month ago. There's something going on here where the Nuggets have figured out how to really bother Alpi Sengun. And I know he had his second best scoring game against the Nuggets last week on Monday, 33 points. But it's just something I noticed where it's like, even without Aaron Gordon, whatever Jokic is doing, it's kind of bothering Alpi a little bit. And that to me is a really positive sign about this matchup for the future. Nuggets also matchup hunted Reed Sheppard heavily in the first game, and Reed just played way better on Saturday. Kings matchup hunted Reed Sheppard last night, and they won that game because of it. So I'm not that concerned about what this matchup will look like in the playoffs. I ultimately compare it to where the Nuggets were against the Lakers in 2023, where it's like these two teams are close, and it's going to be physical, and it's going to be tough. But the Nuggets have something on them where it's like, I think they take them in 4 or 5 in a series, quite honestly. I really do. And I think that was the anomaly just because of bad shooting, because of all the injuries. And I think the Rockets are really, really hurting for some more guard play. And that's something I noticed over these 2 matchups over the short succession. They just hit their shots. Kevin Durant was awesome, turned back the clock in that game. The Nuggets lost. There's not really much you could do about it, especially when you were down your 3 best defenders. The other 2 games, you were down your 2 best defenders. That game, you were down your 3 best defenders with Peyton Watson also out. So I can't read much into it for the playoffs. Just say it kind of stinks that the 6-game win streak comes to an end and the Houston Rockets get to talk some smack after the Denver Nuggets felt like they got a win. But ultimately, what we've seen, AP, Nuggets have only played a couple teams this year. They played the Spurs without Wemby. They've played the Timberwolves twice, once without Ant. They've played the Rockets 3 times now. Those have been good games. That Hawks game was awesome, and they were pretty much fully healthy, but they didn't have Trae Young. They've been better without Trae Young, so that's something that's going on. So I'm not really discounting that one. They play the Jazz tonight. They play the Mavs on Tuesday, both bad teams. But they finally play a good team again on Thursday in the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are kind of going through some crises right now. And this is something I think we should talk about a little bit. They don't really have a guard. Like the Houston Rockets, the Minnesota Timberwolves, you could make a case for are 2 of the tougher matchups for the Nuggets just because of their size. And that's something that's bothered the Nuggets over the years. Timberwolves are playing Bones Highland heavy minutes because they don't have an answer. Mike Conley is aged out of the league in live time. Rob Dillingham is not good enough yet. I mean, they've got some serious issues there, AP, and that's kind of my like highlight going into this matchup of like, hey, Nuggets fan that might not be paying the most attention. It's like Bones Highland's still in the league, and he's going to be playing against the Nuggets and making an impact on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and he's been making contributions, as you mentioned, throughout the course of these heavy minutes that he's been receiving. He was big in that game against Oklahoma City, put up 13 points against them as the Minnesota Timberwolves handed OKC just their 3rd loss of the season. I mean, looking at the minutes usage here, just in the month of December alone, 16 against Phoenix, only 5 minutes against Golden State. But since then, 36 minutes against Sacramento, 34 minutes against the Grizzlies, and then 16 and 19 against the Thunder and the Bucks, respectively. So old pal Bones Highland carving out a role for himself out there in Minnesota, Jake.
And the Wolves are 4-2 since they've made Bones part of the team to this level. So, and he scored double digits in all but 2 of those games in December. Right. And this is a Wolves team that's been really up and down and hurting for parts of the year. They're 19-10 on the season. And, the Nuggets have finally figured out how to beat them, which is very important because the Nuggets lost them 6 straight times. And that's something that really derailed them last year. And obviously in their bid for a repeat, that game 6 loss, which was the worst loss in Nuggets playoff history out in Minnesota in 2024, followed by the game 7 20-point collapse. And as time goes by, and if there is not a second championship, that loss, which at the time was like, well, we're still kind of in the championship hangover. It sucks, but like whatever, they won the championship last year. As time goes by, that game 7 loss in 2024, I think just continues to grow in its haunting of the Nuggets and their fandom. So to have finally broken the streak where they come back and beat you 4 more times the next season. One of which was one of the most disastrous losses I've ever seen in Nuggets history, where Russell Westbrook takes a layup he shouldn't have taken. And it directly leads to the firing of Mike Malone. Basically completely changes what era you're in with Nuggets basketball. The Minnesota Timberwolves do, led by Tim Connelly, who constructed this Nuggets team. Their coach, Chris Finch, the assistant for Mike Malone in the early days, and Mike Inori, their top assistant, Nikola Jokic's first ever Summer League coach. So the connections here are super deep. And they've changed the way the Nuggets have operated. And the Nuggets bring back a different team this year with Tim Hardaway Jr., Bruce Brown, who's got more grit to him, Jonas Valanciunas, who can really bully bigs. And I think that makes a complete difference when you have the Minnesota Timberwolves and their changes as well over time, with Karl Anthony Towns leaving, Naz Reid, Julius Randle. And honestly, the guy that really changed everything for the Timberwolves was Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's no longer there, and he was so good against the Nuggets. So I go into this matchup knowing the Timberwolves have had the Nuggets number for a couple years, but this year the Nuggets have been better than the Timberwolves. This is the first time at home these two teams play, and honestly, I've got a lot of confidence about the Nuggets in this matchup, just given where these two teams are in the season and how this matchup has changed with just those little parts around the fringes going into this season.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about their chances on Christmas night as well. I think the big concern for me is kind of where we started the show, though, of like, does it start to crumble a little bit for them being down those two starters and being down Peyton Watson? I mean, Anthony Edwards is a guy that's playing, like an MVP candidate these last handful of weeks for the Minnesota Timberwolves as well. And so I'm curious, the same theme that I kind of threw out there for the game against the Rockets, but now the inverse of it with Denver coming off a loss. How do they respond? And I understand they beat Minnesota, twice this season. So it's not like it was a couple of years ago, as you alluded to. But where's Denver's mindset at on Christmas night, knowing they're down those key guys and knowing that Minnesota's been a thorn in their side? I think it's going to be really exciting to see how that matchup plays out. I don't think it's a guaranteed win by any stretch of the imagination. But we're also at the point here where, what are they, 4? They've lost 4 of their last 6 at home, or is it 5 of the last 6?
Yeah.
5 of the last 6.
Yeah, 5 of the last 6.
So, that's something else you have to think about.
No, 4 of the last 6, because they beat Houston and Orlando.
There you go.
Actually 5 of the last 7, though.
Not good either way.
Yeah,
that's the big point that you want to drive home is Denver at home, normally a place where they're really good at protecting their own paint.
I disagree with this. I've been saying this for a while. The Nuggets are not a good home team. And they in 2023.
But this is uncharacteristic of them to drop this many in this type of a sample size.
Correct. It hadn't happened in the Jokic era. But you look at where their worst home losses in the playoffs, or worst losses in the playoffs, have been over the last couple of years. They've all been at home. They were such a dominant home team early in the Michael Malone era in 2023 for the first half of 2024. But if you lose a game 7 at home where you lead by 20 points and then you come back and the following year you're up 2-1 on the Oklahoma City Thunder and you have a chance to really end that series and you blow another lead and it's really the Thunder's coming of age moment, I have a hard time calling you a good home team, a great home team. They aren't.
No, I think it's fair, and it all kind of factors it. That makes me even more nervous for this Thursday night game on Christmas now, the way you kind of lay it out that way, Jake.
Well, what I'll tell you, which is going to make you even more nervous, is the fact that the Nuggets have 3 games in 4 nights, which is one of the roughest stretches you can have in the NBA. They play tonight. They play tomorrow against Dallas on national TV, Cooper Flag, which was really fun to watch here in Denver. And then they've got Minnesota on Christmas night. The Timberwolves have the Knicks at home tomorrow, and then they come to Denver for that Christmas game. So they're going to be a little bit more rested than where the Nuggets are, where they have to travel randomly to Dallas in the middle of this home stretch. It's bizarre, the NBA schedule this year. I was talking to a Warriors fan last night about it, and they feel the same, and I can't blame them. I went through their schedule game by game as well. And then you have the Nuggets' longest road trip of the season coming right after this. So generally speaking, the last game at home before a long road trip, the last road game before a home trip or a homestand, any of those games can be really challenging in the NBA because the guy's mentality shifts a little bit. So you have a couple things working against the Nuggets in this game. But what you have working for the Nuggets, I have been to hundreds of Denver Nuggets games. I've been to Ball Arena probably close to 1,000 times between the Nuggets and Avs. The single loudest I have heard Ball Arena, not when the Avs were in the cup, although got really loud, especially that McKinnon goal, that one that didn't even end up mattering because the game was overtime. They lose it. I think that was against the Blues. louder than when the Nuggets won the title in the NBA Finals, louder than when Jamal Murray hit shots to beat the Lakers in the playoffs. Christmas Day 2022 on the back of Nikola Jokic's 41-15 and like 15 game overtime, Aaron Gordon coming down the near side wing, Landry Shamet under the basket, and we all know what happened next. And the thing was, I know y'all love your families. I get it. I love my family too. Do you really love them after, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours with them? The city of Denver proved to me that night that the thing that they loved was hitting the bottle after being with their family. And I have never seen a rowdy, and again, I went to see you. I've been around Buff fans. Never seen a rowdier group of fans in my life than the Denver Nuggets fan base on Christmas Day 2022 for a game that started at 8:30, and these people have been hitting the booze for a while, and it was wild, man. It was wild. The game goes to overtime. People are still drinking. I've heard more things that I've probably shouldn't repeat that night than I ever heard, and that dunk was so sick. So what I'm trying to tell you is, as hostile as an environment it can be at Ball Arena, it will be that on Christmas Day when the Minnesota Timberwolves come here. And this matchup, I would make the case, this is the Denver Nuggets' main rival right now, just as the Suns were on that day. Going into that Suns game, they had absolutely owned the Nuggets for multiple years, going back to the Suns in 4 playoff series. Jamal Murray had not played against the Suns since before that playoff series, and that was Jamal Murray's first time playing against the Suns. And Jamal Murray has had Devin Booker's number his entire career. So that game was a real measuring stick game for the Nuggets early on in the season of like, is this really a championship team? They need to beat this demon that is the Phoenix Suns. I don't think it's quite that with the Minnesota Timberwolves this Thursday on Christmas. But I do think that there is a certain aspect of beating the Timberwolves on national TV, given all their strife against the Timberwolves and the hate between these two teams. And the rowdiness of the crowd is going to feed into it, and it's going to be a movie on Christmas night.
Yeah, I mean, I still think back, like whenever I think of Minnesota, I know we're still, a year and a half or so removed from all of it, but I still think about that 2024, as you alluded to, blowing the 20-point lead there in Game 7. And just everything that kind of came with that. And you also alluded to the fact of all the connections, right? Chris Finch, Mike Nori, Bones Highland, Tim Conley. Like there's a lot of different strands that connect these two franchises right now. So like, look, I think everybody, if you had to pick one team you'd like to see the Nuggets beat, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. We've had 3 games against the Rockets. This will be the 3rd game against Minnesota. But I think there's just an extra level of juice when it comes to facing the Minnesota Timberwolves, and everything you laid out with Christmas night and the antics and the pop and sizzle that'll be taking place in the building that night is going to be absolutely insane, and I can't wait for it.
That game will close out I think a 5-pack of Christmas Day games for the NBA. Yep. I know a lot of folks are going to be watching football that day, but me, the NBA has always been about Christmas. I know the Broncos
football slate sucks. The Broncos game's important for us here locally, but the other games are all trash.
And let's be honest, that Broncos game's going to suck.
They're like 13-point favorites or 11, 12-point favorites, I think.
Yeah. So, I think we all know and hope that the Broncos game is going to go that one way. But for me, Christmas has always been about the NBA, especially, see my Hanukkah shirt as a Jew. I didn't really have many opportunities to do much on Christmas. And obviously it's not a religious holiday for me. So everything is closed. What did I do? I sat there watching the NBA all day. Like Christmas is like, for me, I know Christmas means a lot to a lot of different people. For me, Christmas, what it's always meant to me is I get to watch basketball all day. And I love that. Like, that's like my dream. So I like Christmas just because of that as a Jewish person. But the Nuggets game will close out a slate of 5 games. In the first one, and I want to go over every single team that's playing because you're going to be at a Christmas party, and I want you to be able to sound smart for your family, for your friends that are gathering, and what's going on. So the first game is going to be Cleveland against the New York Knicks. We're going to go over one thing you should know about both of these teams. AP, I'll let you start with the Knicks.
Well, I think it's the Knicks are, we'll see what happens come trade deadline. I know they've been linked to Giannis Antetokounmpo for quite some time, but I think the Knicks are maybe the most complete team right now in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I think it was last week we were talking about, where the Knicks stack up in the Eastern Conference or just in the NBA as a whole. And I think, you're seeing that Villanova crew once again tighten up. I think Mike Brown, I know there's a lot of people that thought him and Tom Thibodeau, maybe it was kind of a neutral move. I actually think you've seen Mike Brown get a little bit more out of this Knicks team so far this season. And that's going to be a really interesting matchup. Right now, the Knicks, I think, are one of, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and the thing about the Knicks is they've clearly separated themselves from the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I thought were going to be the best team in the East this year. I did pick the Knicks to go to the NBA Finals, but I thought in the regular season, the Cavs would be better. The Cavs have been awesome for multiple years. Kenny Atkinson had won Coach of the Year last year. There are already rumors going on behind the scenes in the NBA that Kenny Atkinson could be out of a job soon, and that's because the Cavs have started 15-14. They cannot get things going with Darius Garland on the floor together with Donovan Mitchell. It's a combination that's worked well in the past, but something looks wrong with Garland. He just looks like a broken player. And Garland, again, one of my favorite players in the league, really good guard. Garland is shooting 38% this year.
Sheesh.
From the field, Danilo.
Yeah, that is rough.
Yeah, so Donovan Mitchell is just carrying this team like a corpse on his back right now. And that's the only reason why they've won 15, coupled with the fact that this is just a really bad Eastern Conference. So the Cavs are a playoff team, but they've been one of the biggest disappointments in the NBA so far. Next game in Oklahoma City, you've got the Spurs against the Thunder, a matchup that replays right before the NBA Cup really settled. We saw these two teams just play, and it was awesome. It was Wemby's return. Anilo, I'll let you pick whichever team you want to have one takeaway about.
Yeah, it was also the Thunder's second loss of the season. Look, I'm going to go with the Spurs here just because I don't think there's much to say about the Thunder. They're an absolute wagon. SGA does what he does. He's the MVP favorite for a reason. They're the best team in the NBA, right? But San Antonio, you go back to that with SGA or with Wemby's return, they handed San Antonio or the Oklahoma City Thunder, their second loss of the season in that matchup. And I think, as I mentioned, we know what the Oklahoma City Thunder are. And right now, I think it's kind of like a 3, maybe even a 4-horse race between the Spurs, the Nuggets, the Rockets, and maybe even the Lakers, who have been a pretty surprise team this season, of who's going to cement themselves as the second best team in the Western Conference. So I think on top of that, there's some bad blood, right? Victor Wembanyama came out and talked about how it's nice to play ethical basketball, kind of taking a shot at the Oklahoma City Thunder after that matchup in the NBA Cup semis. So I'm just excited to see if San Antonio can once again live up to the hype and hopefully hand Oklahoma City another loss.
Yeah, Spurs have a lot to live up to, and I think they learned a lot from that NBA Cup loss in the championship game to the New York Knicks, with Wemby needing to assert himself. But speaking of asserting yourself, Jalen Williams has only played 9 games for the Thunder so far. He was an all-NBA guy last year, got a huge contract. He's been hurt early on this year. And it's no surprise to me that 2 of the Thunder's 3 losses have come in the last little stretch, where the Thunder are trying to reinsert Jalen Williams, who's a fantastic player, into their lineup. And both of these losses have come to good teams. But it just takes a little bit of mind molding and trying to get that chemistry back, even though they've played so much to get Jalen Williams back into the lineup. So this team, the Thunder, obviously fantastic. But until the NBA Cup, I think, semifinal, had not played a game this season where their entire starting 5 players plus their top 2 rotation players off the bench were healthy at the same time. So this is the team that's unbelievable, top of the NBA, undisputed, and they have one of the best defenses in the history of the NBA, according to defensive rating, and yet they've been injured for much of the season, and I think that's one of the reasons why they've been blemished here a couple times lately. Coming up next after that is maybe the worst game of Christmas.
I think it is the worst game, or the least compelling. It's going to be a good game, but
yeah, you've got the Dallas Mavericks at the Golden State Warriors, and I'll let you go either way on either of these two teams too.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from both of these, I know there were some people out there that thought that Dallas was going to flip a switch and be, a real contender in the Western Conference. They've been okay, I guess. They're 11-18, but they're in a weird place right now with Cooper Flag and everything else that they're dealing with. I think the real story of this game is Golden State. They're 1 game below 500 right now. They've fallen short of expectations. I know there's been some conversation about could they look to trade for old pal Michael Porter Jr. to try to get a boost in the scoring department there. But I think it's really about this Golden State team that is yet to really settle into a groove, right? We know they have Steph Curry, Draymond's still there, of course, but Golden State has been relatively disappointing this season, I would say.
Yeah, Golden State's been one of the biggest disappointments in the league. Jimmy Butler hasn't really found footing. Draymond Green looks like it's over, quite honestly. Jonathan Kuminga is one of the worst signings that happened this summer. They just cannot get him on the floor. He's likely to be traded very soon. But I'm going to go back to the Mavs just because you already talked about the Warriors. The Mavs have won 5 of their last 8, and that's something to note with this Nuggets game coming up on Tuesday. They do play New Orleans tonight, so there's a chance New Orleans stinks that they're going to be 6-2 over their last 8.
And so they'll both be on a back-to-back then.
They'll both be on a back-to-back.
So that's interesting.
On Tuesday, and they'll both be 3-4 on Christmas. So this Mavs team, kind of hard to figure out their identity. Anthony Davis has been in and out of the lineup. He, is an all-time player, but I just don't think he's that motivated, quite honestly, by playing for this team right now. Klay Thompson has been taken out of the starting lineup with this team, obviously a legendary player as well. D'Lo is on this team somehow. He just always appears just when you think that his career is over. There's not much to say about this team other than they're a middling team kind of trying to figure out their identity post the Luka Doncic trade. They ended up with Cooper Flagg somehow, wink, wink, and he'll be one of the youngest players in the history of the NBA to play on Christmas, and he has been absolutely spectacular. I believe if he's not their leading scorer, Anthony Davis is, just by like a hint or two. Just enjoy watching Cooper Flagg against Steph Curry because you won't get to see that matchup many times because, ships passing in the night. Steph's towards the end. Cooper Flagg is just beginning, and this will be a fun one. Right after that and before the Nuggets game, I'm really looking forward to this one, AP, and this is right at the same time the Broncos, so I don't know how much we're actually going to be able to watch this one, but you've got the Houston Rockets at the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, that is going to be an exciting one. And we've talked a lot about Houston. And I think the big takeaway here is the Lakers have been better than expectations. Like I had Luka Doncic as my MVP winner before the season. He's in the running. Not sure he'll catch SGA or Nikola Jokic at this point. But when you look at the standings as well, the Lakers only one game back of Denver in the loss column. They're 19-8 to Denver's 20-7. I think the Lakers have been one of the biggest surprises so far in the NBA this season. Of course, LeBron James is as healthy as he could be at his age right now. You've got Luka doing his thing. The Lakers are playing good basketball, Jake.
Yeah, the Lakers just need to figure out how to play with Reeves, Doncic, and LeBron on the floor all together at the same time. I don't know that that's solvable in the playoffs. Like, I don't know that they have enough defense, but at least for the regular season, they just have so much firepower. And very sneakily, the reason why Luka Doncic has an MVP case is because he leads the league in scoring. He's scoring 34 points a game. And I think that's one of the reasons why some of the people in the straw poll for the MVP that came out last week on ESPN, why Jokic actually had a lot more votes than I expected him to, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not leading the league in scoring. He is on the best team, and we can get to that in a second. But Luka's getting to the free throw line. Shocking. 12 times a game for the Los Angeles Lakers. Reeves is getting there 9 times a game. LeBron's 5 times a game. They're getting to the free throw line a lot. DeAndre Ayton, who we know from years and years with the Suns, has actually been a really solid pickup for this team. Not surprising. He's so solid when he is engaged. The problem is, can you get him engaged? Rui Hachimura still being a solid player for this team. Marcus Smart is hanging around the fringes. They've got some good players on this team. And I think that, most of the years people talk about the Lakers on ESPN and it's forced and it's whatever. Like, they're not that good of a team. This year's Lakers team is pretty solid. I don't think they're one of the elite teams. I don't know that they really have a chance to win a championship, but can they win 1 to 2 playoff series? I think the answer is probably yes, even with their perimeter defense issues. So I would look for this team to maybe make a move at the deadline. They've got some interesting things going on. So, and I don't need to touch on the Rockets because we've done it so many times, but I did want to ask you, you brought up the MVP votes. Luka Doncic is third right now in the MVP straw poll, which is done by Tim McMahon on ESPN. Or Tim Bontemps. Sorry, I got my Tims confused. Tim Bontemps from ESPN. And it's the most accurate poll to this point in the season. Jokic, I think, had 43 first place votes, and Shai had 57 of the 100. This is really close. Really close.
I think there's a little SGA fatigue, if I'm being honest with you. And it's not because of his market. I think it's partially because, like you mentioned, he's not leading the league in scoring. But I think people are also it's a combination of the team being so good as opposed to the individual being good. Like, we know SGA is a great player, but I also think people are a little tired of his play style. I don't know how much that factors into the voters, but I just think that there's more factors working against SGA this year. Like, whereas Jokic in his MVP seasons, it's like undeniable how good he is. And he also should have won it the year that Embiid got it. And so I think with SGA, it's kind of like the same old song and dance minus a little bit of scoring, while as Jokic is still playing at an elite level, down 2 starters. And to your point with Luka Doncic, averaging well over 30 plus points a game right now too. So it's interesting. SGA is the slight favorite at minus 105, Jokic right behind him at plus 190, and then Luka at plus 450. And then it's a massive line. So you're looking at one of these 3 players, assuming they all stay healthy, to be the MVP this season.
Do you agree with the fact that they have SGA over Jokic right now?
No, you know my opinion on that. I don't think SGA is, again, we go through this exercise all the time, most valuable player. SGA is not the most valuable player with respect to the team that he plays on. Like, you take SGA off the Thunder, sure, they probably take a little bit of a step back, but they're still going to be a top 3 team in the Western Conference. You take Nikola Jokic off the Nuggets, they're a lottery team. You take Luka Doncic off the Lakers, they're probably not making the playoffs, right? So I think both of those guys in Luka and Jokic provide more value to their respective teams. I just think SGA, with what he's doing in the dominance of the Thunder, is going to prop him up. But again, minus 105 for SGA, Jokic at plus 190, so under 2-1 odds. It's about as close as it's going to get.
I voted for Nikola Jokic every single year going back to 1920 for MVP. I think maybe 2020, 21, but you get the point. Jokic had my vote through the Embiid years, through Shea year last year. Right now, if I were asked to put my vote in for the MVP straw poll, I would have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander over Nikola Jokic, just because if the Oklahoma City Thunder win 75 games and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander leads the league in scoring or is like 1 point behind, that's even more legendary and more iconic than what Nikola Jokic has done this year. And I just look at it from the standpoint of league history. I love the NBA. I love basketball history. I think what Nikola Jokic does is clearly the most valuable. Clearly. There's no disputing it. But sometimes, in my opinion, the most valuable player award turns into the most outstanding player award. And this could be one of those years if the Thunder continue their run. But the fact that the Thunder have lost twice since that MVP straw poll was taken, I think might put this race at like 50-50 right now already at this point. So this race is a lot closer than maybe even that straw poll appeared. And then finally, right before we get out of here, AP, we might not talk to you before this starts, but the Nuggets have their longest road trip of the year starting December 27th.
Yep.
7-game road trip: Orlando, Miami, Toronto, Cleveland, Brooklyn, Philly, Boston. Denver is not back in town after Christmas until January 9th.
That's crazy.
One game I am circling on this road trip, and there's not a back-to-back on this, New Year's Eve against the Toronto Raptors. Toronto Raptors have been a really solid team this year, one of the best and deeper teams in the league. They've got a good starting lineup, but their bench has been awesome. 17-13. I'm just kind of interested to see this matchup because we're only going to see it twice this year between Denver and Toronto. And if these teams are healthy, I think it means a lot. I know Jamal Murray loves going and playing Toronto, so this is the game I'm circling on the road trip.
Didn't Scotty Barnes have a triple-double against them the last time they played? I remember that game just being an absolute throttle last season.
Yeah, and I can't pronounce the Raptors coach's name, but he's also Serbian. Oh. And he went completely off about the refs. And that was the game where he said Scotty Barnes is a future all-NBA player in this league, and blah, blah, blah. I think his name's Darko. But he was right. Scotty Barnes is an all-NBA player this year. Like, he looks like an all-NBA guy. So
yeah, I think that's the most intriguing matchup on that schedule. You'll have Brooklyn on January 4th. So that'll be the first time we see Michael Porter Jr. going up against his old team in the Denver Nuggets. So that's intriguing. And I also think the final game of the road trip, just kind of as you alluded to, how mindset shift on the road at TD Garden against the Boston Celtics, who, Jason Tatum won't be back for this game, but, Jaylen Brown has done a really good job of shouldering the load. Those are probably the three most compelling games on the schedule, I would say.
And oh, how the mighty have fallen. We don't even care that they're playing Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
We don't even care.
Like,
it's over.
He sold his soul for that MVP.
Yeah, it's over. So this road trip, though, I think can hinge the Nuggets season a little bit. I think after it, we're going to know whether or not they're really fighting for that second seed, or they're going to be, I think they can separate themselves as clearly in great position to win that second seed, or it's going to be a fight for the entire second half of the season. And I really, really hope Christian Brown is back for part of this road trip. Yep. I know he's working out. I wouldn't expect Aaron Gordon to be back for any of this road trip, unfortunately. Peyton Watson should be back tonight. So they need the reinforcements, and some of the reinforcements could be coming on this road trip, which would just be huge for the Nuggets, because I think you're going to see it again probably against Minnesota on Thursday. They're missing their dogs.
Yes, sir. I'm excited.
He's Danilo Piro. I'm Jake Shapiro. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy holidays to all of you. Happy Hanukkah the last night for me and my family. We will see you very soon. We're not podcasting Thursday, but we'll update you on the schedule. If you don't hear from us on the podcast for an indeterminate amount of time, we will be on denversports.com. I will have all the latest and greatest on the Denver Nuggets coming on the web. So make sure you stay tuned there. We're both on social media. He's at Media by AP. I'm at Shapalicious, and we'll talk to you very soon.